July 4, 1942, Colditz Castle, Saxony. Rain lashes the high stone walls, the courtyard lit by yellow floodlights that cut across iron bars. Major Pat Reed, the British officer who has spent months testing every blind corner of this so-called escape-proof fortress, stiffens at the sound of boots hammering the corridor. German guards shout in clipped syllables, rifles clattering against their belts. Reed presses a contraband map flat beneath a floorboard, breath measured, waiting for the storm to pass. At that exact hour, thousands of kilometers west, in a factory in Bridgeport, Connecticut, molten steel is being stamped into shape. The Auto-Ordnance line rattles like a clockwork machine, each piston strike sending another receiver of the Thompson Submachine gun down the line. One prison contains men behind stone. The other binds workers to quotas and deadlines. Both are locked systems under pressure. The image is stark. In Saxony, rifles glint under torchlight as sentries march along Gothic balconies. The air smells of damp limestone and boiled cabbage from the guards' mess hall. In America, fluorescent bulbs hum above assembly stations where polished cartridges are stacked into drums, brass shining like clock gears. A soldier in training slides the drum into place with a metallic snap. The weapon's profile short, heavy, and distinct. The Thompson, nicknamed the Tommy gun. It is the same silhouette once tied to gangsters in Chicago streets, now reforged as an instrument of Allied war. Cold realities define both places. Colditz Castle is not just a prison. It is a statement of German control. Perched 75 meters above the Mulde River, its stone walls rise over 2 meters thick, guarded by more than 300 armed men. The Germans call it Ausbruchssicher, escape-proof. Inside are over 400 Allied officers who had already attempted to break free from other camps. By calculation alone, a successful escape seems impossible. One guard for every 1.3 prisoners, every door reinforced by steel bars, every tunnel threatened by sheer rock. Yet still the prisoners plan, because numbers can be bent by ingenuity. Across the Atlantic, the math is just as stark. The U.S. Army estimates it needs more than 1 million submachine guns for global operations. By the end of the war, 1.5 million Thompsons will be produced, a ratio of nearly 1 per 60 American combat soldiers deployed worldwide. The castle is meant to crush will. The gun is meant to amplify it. Both are measured in men, tons of steel, and miles of logistics. Typewriters chatter in Colditz, their keys disguised as harmless paperwork, but actually pounding coded escape notes that will vanish through Red Cross channels. Maps are drawn on hidden scraps, uniforms stitched from bed linen dyed with floor polish. In the attic rafters, officers whisper in half a dozen languages, turning captured intelligence into routes and false passes. Each calculation is done by hand, each distance measured with string, pencil, and prayer. Across the ocean, a different kind of preparation unfolds. Engineers at Savage Arms lean over jigs and calipers, ensuring that stamped receivers meet tolerance. The Auto-Ordnance Corporation, once a struggling private venture, has merged wartime urgency with industrial muscle. What had been a luxury firearm for police and gangsters is now standardized as the M1 Thompson, designed for mass output. The engineering equation is exact. 45 ACP rounds at 830 feet per second, a cyclic rate between 600 and 700 rounds per minute, effective at close quarters where firefights collapse into meters, not miles. In Tunisia, spring 1943, a young GI crouches behind a dusty rock ledge, the desert sun burning the metal of his weapon. His Thompson M1A1 weighs just over 10 pounds loaded, barrel shortened for jungle or street. The drum magazine of the 1928 model is gone. In its place, a 30-round stick, easier to manufacture, quicker to swap under fire. His fingers run over stamped steel rather than milled. The weapon's cost having dropped from $209 in 1940 to under $45 at peak wartime production. War Department procurement records, 1943. Nearby, his squad leader shoulders a Browning automatic rifle. Both weapons complement each other, the Thompson delivering brutal short-range bursts, while the bar lays suppressive arcs. The GI pulls back the charging handle, feels the spring bite forward, and waits for the signal. Thousands of miles away, a Colditz prisoner checks the seams on a stitched German tunic. Both men, separated by continents and conditions, prepare their loadouts with equal precision. One for a firefight, the other for an escape attempt. The firefight comes fast. A German MG-34 opens up across a dry wadi, bullets chewing the sand into sprays. The American squad is pinned, rifles snapping from the other side. The GI rises, Thompson at hip, the first burst spitting fire and smoke into the air. The weapon bucks like a piston hammering against steel. The short barrel keeps the rounds in a wide cone, every pull devouring cartridges in seconds. Dust clouds, shouts, impact. Men shout over the roar. One German falls, another dives behind cover. In Colditz, the same year, prisoners make their first serious dash across the courtyard. A rope ladder drops, floodlights blaze, boots thunder on cobblestones. Whistles shriek, Mausers crack. Both actions end in violence. One measured in spent brass and bodies, the other in handcuffs and punishment cells. Preparation meets reality, and neither steel nor stone proves absolute. The German answer comes quickly. In the desert, machine gun belts feed into the brutal rhythm of the MG-42, its 1-200 rounds per minute chatter drowning out the Thompsons' slower bursts. Infantry squads learn the hard way that the Tommy gun is devastating up close, but powerless against entrenched fire hundreds of meters away. German squads switch to overlapping lanes, forcing Americans into kill zones where the short-range weapon cannot reach. At Colditz, the countermeasure is human rather than mechanical. Guard rotations doubled, floodlights sweeping like clock pendulums across the courtyards, patrol dogs prowling the outer walls. For every Allied attempt at deception, the Germans reply with new checks, searches, and punishment cells. The system evolves in constant opposition, like two gears grinding teeth against each other, neither allowed to spin freely. The Thompson itself carries limits baked into its steel. Soldiers complain of its weight, nearly 11 pounds with a loaded magazine, a burden in North African heat or Italian hills. Effective fire dwindles beyond 50 yards, accuracy lost in recoil. In mud or dust, the stick magazines jam, cartridges misfeeding when grit fouls the feed lips. Reports from Sicily describe men taping 2 magazines together for faster reloads, a trick that only partly solves the problem. Too heavy for a sidearm, too short-ranged for a rifle, one after-action note reads in the 36th Infantry Division log, September 1943. At Colditz, the same law of limits applies. Prisoners grow thinner on the meager rations of cabbage soup and bread heels. Malnutrition makes hands shake when stitching uniforms. Nerves fray under the monotony of failure. A Dutch officer records in his diary, "The mind becomes like a spring wound too tight. Every hour of waiting makes the coil more brittle." Colditz Archive, 1943. The weapon and the prisoner alike strain under mechanical and human tolerances. Then the setbacks strike hard. In July 1943, Rangers push against fortified positions in Sicily. They carry Thompsons into alleys and stone farmhouses, only to find pillboxes shrugging off the .45 caliber rounds. Casualties mount. The Rangers fall back, their close-range weapon impotent against concrete and machine gun nests. In Colditz, the Franz Josef Tunnel collapses after weeks of clandestine labor, dust choking the lungs of men clawing through rock with spoons and boards. German guards uncover the wreck and punishments fall on dozens. Progress evaporates overnight. Plans destroyed like blueprints soaked in oil. Both in battlefields and prison walls, failure comes not as drama but as grinding stoppage, like a seized gear halting the machine in mid-turn. Improvisation becomes survival. In the Pacific, soldiers grind down the Thompson's stock with saws, stripping weight to make it faster to bring to shoulder in jungle ambushes. Some carry taped magazines in pairs, flipping them like a wrench head to keep fire continuous. In Italy, others use the weapon not as a precision tool but as a shock device, hosing doorways with bursts to clear stone farmhouses. Manuals barely keep up. Field practice rewrites doctrine with every engagement. At Colditz, improvisation reaches stranger heights. Officers hide a handmade radio transmitter inside hollowed table legs, catching scraps of BBC broadcasts to learn the war's tide. Tailors among them dye sheets with scavenged ink, cutting them into uniforms close enough to pass inspection under dim corridor lamps. Both soldier and prisoner adapt, both turn limitation into mechanism. Then the breaking point. June 6, 1944. Normandy. Paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st descend through flak-blackened skies. Sainte-Mère-Église burns beneath them, the town's church spire lit by fire. Thompsons hang from their harnesses, pulled into action the moment boots hit the cobbles. Bursts of .45 echo down the lanes, muzzle flashes lighting paratroopers advancing house to house. At close quarters, the weapon does exactly what it was born to do, dominate at a range where hesitation means death. Doors are kicked in, corners cleared in seconds. Chaos thunders like pistons slamming in sequence, each soldier a gear tooth meshing with the next. At Colditz in the same year, prisoners complete the wooden frame of their most audacious plan, a two-man glider built in secret above the chapel. It never takes flight, but the sheer act of construction proves that ingenuity can claw even at stone walls. Both moments carry the same weight. War breaking open, no longer contained by walls, nests, or doctrine. By 1945, the numbers tell the story. Over 1.5 million Thompsons produced, with U.S. factories delivering more than 500 each day at peak output. Nearly every squad in Europe and the Pacific carried one, its profile etched into the silhouette of the American infantrymen. At Colditz, 130 documented escape attempts were made, and roughly 30 men succeeded, vanishing into occupied Europe against the odds. On April 16th, U.S. troops arrive at the castle. The guards abandon their posts. Prisoners step into the sun as free men again. The walls that had stood for centuries fall silent, just as the last Thompsons roll off assembly lines, soon to be replaced by lighter carbines and new rifles. Yet the weapon and the prison share one truth. Both proved that steel structures and human will are only temporary restraints, and under pressure, both can be forced open. The Thompson and Colditz alike remind us that in war, it is never just the weapon or the wall that matters, but the relentless force that drives men to break limits and push the machine forward until it cannot be stopped.